Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you? Nice meeting
Fine,
you.
sir. Fine, sir. Fine.
Dr. Rajaraman, sir, we were your students. Hello. Dr. Rajaraman, sir, we were your students in IIT Kanpur. Good evening, Dr. Mohan.
Shivani has joined, is it? Shivani?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mohan.
Very good. Good evening. Yeah, we can start recording also. We will start in another 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mohan.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
Fine, sir. How are things?
All is good.
Shall we start, sir?
Yes, okay.
Sir, is it language Professor Rajaraman? Professor Rajaraman, can you unmute, sir?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Okay. So, start, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Shall we start, sir?
We can start.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, you can do it, sir, now. Greetings and good evening to one and all. On behalf of Computer Society of India, ACM and IEEE Computer Society, I extend a warm welcome to you all joining in our today's webinar on writing a textbook. With the advent of internet, subject portals, university-based online courses, MOOCs, online tutorials, and learning sources, the dependency on the books have come down significantly. However, the current university-based educational system, examinations, syllabus, prescribed textbooks, etc., still makes the textbooks are important. But with the trends in employment focusing more on skills, knowledge, and micro subjects, which are not necessarily based on the regular taught university courses, maintaining the relevance of formal textbooks have come down and become a difficult task. The process of writing textbooks have also undergone changes over a period of time. Also, the marketing of books. When these were discussed with Ms. Shivani of PHA Learning, who has been coordinating with CSI, ACM, and IEEE CS in organizing a number of author presentations, we came with an idea of organizing a program specifically on writing a textbook addressing major aspects of guidelines, subject focus, and publisher's angle. We quickly zeroed down with the eminent authors for the first two aspects, and I pitched with Ms. Shivani herself, who represents PHA Learning, which has published over 5,000 books, to talk about publishers' perspective. The response to this webinar was overwhelming, with around 80% representing academic faculty and little over 10% working professionals. Additionally, a number of registrants had asked relevant questions to the speakers in advance. Most of them are being addressed by the speakers during the presentation itself. Further, we will be open to take questions at the end of all the presentations through the chat box. Now it is my pleasant task to introduce the webinar speakers, Professor Narayanaswamy, Professor Raja Rahman, and Ms. Shivani Garg. Dr. Narayanaswamy is a professor of finance and accounting at Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He is the author of the popular book, Financial Accounting, A Managerial Perspective, first published in 2000 and currently in its 6th edition. He holds a PhD in accounting from University of South Wales, Australia. Professor Narayanaswamy teaches financial accounting, management accounting, and financial statement analysis and valuation. He has published several papers in leading journals. He was an independent director of the Indian Railway Finance Corporation and Bank of Baroda. Currently, Professor Narayanaswamy chairs the Technical Advisory Committee of the National Financial Reporting Authority. We are happy to have Professor Narayanaswamy to provide guidelines and tips in the form of do's and don'ts in writing textbooks. Coming to Professor Raja Rahman, he is a PhD from University of Wisconsin and is currently the Emeritus Professor at the Supercomputer Education and Research Center at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Dr. Rajaraman has been teaching for over 58 years. He was a professor of computer science and electrical engineering at IIT Kanpur from 1963 to 1982. He was a professor of computer science and chairman of Supercomputer Education and Research Center at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore from 1982 to 1994. And he has served as IBM Professor of Information Technology at Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research from 1994 to 2001. Dr. Raja Rahman has several awards and recognitions to his credit. He is a Padma Bhushan awardee in 1998. He is a recipient of the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in 1976, the Homi Bhabha Prize by UGC, Om Prakash Bhashan Award, the ISDE Award for Excellence in Teaching Computer Engineering, Rastam Chakshi Award, the Zahir Medal by Indian National Science Academy, a Lifetime Contribution Awardee of Indian National Academy of Engineering, and our own Computer Society of India. He has received honorary doctorates in science from IIT Kanpur and the Indian Institute of Engineering and Technology, Shibapur. He is a fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, the National Science Academy, the Indian National Science Academy, Indian National Academy of Engineering, and the Computer Society of India. Dr. Raja Rahman, apart from being an author of several well-established and highly successful computer books, has published a large number of research papers in reputed national and international journals and a most sought-after speaker at various conferences. We are proud to have Professor Rajaraman today to talk on authoring books in computer science and engineering. Ms. Shivani Chandra Garg is a technical editor with over 20 years of experience in academic and digital publishing domains. An alumna of IIM Ahmedabad, she has masters in electronics and marketing management. She started her career in publishing with S. Chandan Company and has worked for various publishers ranging from school textbooks to higher education textbooks. Currently, she is the senior editor of PHA Learning and is responsible for the administration of publishing process and techniques of publishing technical textbooks in various formats. With sound knowledge of textbook publishing domain, basically dealing with customers, tools, processes, and technique, she enjoys mentoring freshers and copy editors who are keen to learn more about publishing domain. She strongly believes that hard work and ethics are key to making a successful career path. We are happy to have Ms. Shivani to share with us the publisher's perspectives in bringing out books by authors, a last mile issue. With these words of introduction, may I now request Professor Narayanaswamy to the first session on guidelines and tips for writing a textbook. Professor Narayanaswamy, please.
Good evening, everyone. Can I see my presentation? Is going to be put up now.
Good evening, sir.
Is my presentation going to be shown now?
Yes, sir. It will be presented, sir.
Okay. So meanwhile, I get started. Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to participate in this event organized by CSI Chennai, ACM Chennai, IEEE CS Madras, and PHI Learning. It's a privilege to be part of a panel that includes Professor V. Rajaraman, a well-known author in computer science. I came to know about computers from his books. I must admit, I'm a little nervous in his presence. So I hope he won't give me a fail grade in this exam. Okay, so with this, let me get started with this. So you can see my presentation. So the overall theme of this webinar is guidelines and tips. So I have put that there. But specifically, I thought I should take you through the process of publishing and the do's and don'ts at each stage. So I have a presentation, but I also make some observations which might not exactly be appearing on the screen. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is from my experience. So now this might be someone else's experience or might not be. So you just have to remember that this is my story, and therefore you just have to think of me as someone narrating my own story in as much detail as possible, and of course fully and honestly whatever happened in this experience. Next slide, please. So what am I planning to do in this presentation? I'm going to talk about the various stages that the author goes through and the key things that happen at each stage. So first, a list of the main stages here. First is the idea of a book. Then the market for a book, the material that goes into the book, preparing a chapter plan, writing draft chapters, proofreading and class testing, preparing instructor and student resources, and there is one on the publisher portion, which I will come to at the end. Next slide, please. Okay, so the idea of a textbook, I would think of it as the design stage of the product. If you think of the book as your product, then this is the design stage. The more time you spend on design, all of you are engineers, so you know this much better than I do. I am a CA, so you know this much better than I do. The more time you spend on designing, the less time you spend later manufacturing and then fixing quality problems. So I would suggest we ask fairly difficult questions at this stage. In fact, I thought the first thing that any author must do is to think of why this book at all. So typical authors' motivations I have seen, my own experience plus what I have heard from others, there is no textbook for my subject. Existing textbooks are no good. Existing textbooks are not fit for my context or course. I have something new or different to say, and so on it goes. Now, each of these statements needs to be critically examined, because the author obviously feels that there is a nice story waiting to be told. But then, would there be, is there any possibility that the story has already been told? Maybe not in your way, but in some other way. So therefore, I'm suggesting here, you ask questions very carefully. When you say, for example, there is no textbook for my subject. Now, why are you saying so? Now, science, for example, is universal. Everywhere, biology, physics, chemistry, mathematics are the same. So if you have to write something in science, which I guess, and technology, which this audience is largely about, I think you have to ask some very hard questions. Now, my own position here is very different. My field is accounting, and financial accounting in particular. And financial accounting is very, very country specific, in the sense that the company law, that securities legislation, accounting standards, disclosures, all of these are very country specific. So I felt the need for writing a book when I started in IMB in 1986. And then I started working on it probably in around 1989 or 1990 or so. So there were books then available, but the thing was that those books were not meant for the MBA audience. They were meant for BCom, CA kinds of audiences. So effectively saying there is no textbook for my subject was true in my case. I actually really don't want to say anything about one or two texts which are prevalent then, but I only felt that they were fairly dated. The content there was dated, the cases were quite dated. So therefore, I felt I needed to write something on my own. One important decision you have to take at this stage is whether you want to be a single author or you want to have a co-author. Now, single author, co-author, each has its own pluses and minuses. Single author, the whole thing is under your control. So you can decide what to write, when to write, how to write, and so on. Co-author is someone along with you, so you need to work out with that person your plan and so on. So obviously, a lot more accommodation is required. So think about it very carefully. Be clear about what you expect from your co-author and agree on all these things in writing. What would the co-author do? For example, would the co-author provide the assignment material? Would the co-author write the text? Would the co-author write certain chapters or parts? All of that has to be agreed in advance. Otherwise, there could be some misunderstanding later. So therefore, my summation, so what I have done in each of my slides, I put something in red, which is really the question I would like you to address. So your motivation, do ask very hard questions. Next slide, please. Next is the market for the book. Now, the market for the book as seen by the publisher is one thing that I think obviously the publisher is going to talk about it. But I'm talking about the market from your point of view. Now, you are bringing in one more textbook to the market. So the first question is, there are so many books available in the market. So why my book? Who is going to read my book? So we are talking about textbooks. So obviously textbooks are read by students, undergraduate, graduate, and PhD students. There might also be others. There might be practitioners. There might be various other people who might read this. There might even be teachers who might read your book to update themselves. So therefore, who is my target audience? Who will read my book? And also the likely adopters. Now, who are going to use your book? Remember, students use books which are prescribed by the teachers. So they therefore need to be told to read, let's say, a book X or book A or B. So I am talking about 3 different kinds of institutions here who are likely adopters. One is top academic or professional institutions in India. So the top engineering, medical, legal, and management and so on. So those kinds of institutions, which are national institutions. Then there are university departments which happen to be specific to a state or a region. Then there are affiliated colleges which are there in every city, town, village. So who are your likely adopters? Now the question to ask here is my book suited for the kind of environment in which these people are studying? If you look at universities, for example, the syllabus is highly centralized, and affiliated colleges take only the syllabus given by the universities. Therefore, if you are writing something, you have to ensure that it by and large, at least, it complies with the syllabus requirements. If you are writing for a top academic or professional institution like IITs and so on, then you have a lot more liberty because the professors there have greater freedom to design their own courses and come with new courses. So they might just accept your book, even if it doesn't conform to any existing syllabus. Then another thing you need to do as part of the market. So what I talked about is the demand side so far. The supply side of the market is the competing titles. Competing titles, there must be many. There are many dozens of titles. In fact, typically when some instructor comes to me in my own institution and tells me, I want to write a book, please tell me how to go about. My first question to them is, have you thought about the competing titles? What are the competing titles? Oh, they say, no, there is no competing title at all. I said, that can't be true, because if this is a field where you want to write a book, somebody else must have thought about it earlier. And therefore, I'm sure you need to find out those titles. Then they come back and say there are many titles. The market is full of competing titles. And therefore, for your book to stand out in the crowd, you need to think very carefully about those titles. And in fact, do what we, in our MBA jargon, we call this competition analysis. So find out what is good, bad about those titles, and how can you be distinct in the market. One tendency for many authors is to overestimate the market size and / underestimate the competition. So they think the market is very big. All the BCom students will buy my accounting books, for example. Or you think there are no competing books at all. If you make both these assumptions, then that's a very dangerous thing. So therefore, this is one kind of don't for you. If you are doing this, be careful and be self-critical about the market and about your ability to distinguish yourself. Next slide, please. The material that goes into the book. Now, this you don't collect on the day on which you start writing your book. You do this over a very long period of time. In fact, I would think you probably would have spent already 10 years or more perhaps collecting the material. So the first step is, so you have now decided on the broad topic, title of the book, the positioning of the book and so on. Now plan for the material to be included. A number of sources you have depending on what your topic is going to be. Academic journals, professional general magazines, newspapers, various television, internet, all of these sources you have to identify, and you have to collect these systematically over time. Now, this is what I would have done probably for about, I think, at least 12 years before my book hit the printing machine. So it took a long time. And in fact, I was myself very frustrated with this. But then I realized that the more time you spend on this, the better it is for you and for everyone. The amount of material you won't believe you collect in maybe 10 years' time would be so much that you will be, this will be a sea of paper. At least it used to be in the 1990s when I was doing this. So you really would lose control of what you're doing. So today, everything is in a digital form. So the most important thing I would say at this stage is to index all the material you have collected, and you can work on a tentative index to start with, and then this could be chapter-wise, topic-wise, whatever, and then you can refine the index over time. There are lots of indexing softwares available, so you can also use those softwares. Another important thing is it requires a lot of effort to collect all the material, so do keep several backups. Now, when I was doing this, we had only, in fact, I didn't have a computer when I joined in '86. We got our first computers in the 1990s, early. Our PCs in those years, and we had a computer which actually had 2 disk drives. One was the operating system drive, the other was the data drive. So either one or both used to misbehave all the time. So therefore, we ended up keeping all the material in hard copy form. But today you can keep it in digital form. But the danger with the digital form is that you can lose all of this at one stroke for various reasons. The hard disk can crash. There can be some hacking. There can be lots of things that go wrong. So you will have to identify cloud storage. For example, you have the Dropbox available today. You have so I used to in the early stage I used to email all the chapters to my own self and store them. But today you can do something much more civilized than that. One other thing, as part of materials, do note all the copyright permissions which are required, because a lot of material is copyrighted, and copyright is one that can put the author in big trouble later. It can cost your entire professional life. What you have done, all the work you have done to earn your reputation can just go in copyright. A related matter is plagiarism. Now, plagiarism and copyright are different. A lot of people actually don't know the difference, so I probably have to tell you the difference. Plagiarism is not illegal. Plagiarism is just a violation of a professional conduct code or moral conduct code. Copyright violation is illegal. So in copyright violation, you may end up, so the law provides very stringent penalties in many countries, imprisonment, fine, and so on. And it's a very big mess for anyone who probably can visualize what the problem is. Plagiarism is an embarrassment, but it is best avoided. So please do take care of both these problems and obtain copyright permission as and when required. Remember, copyright permissions, the author has to obtain, the publisher won't. So you have to tell the publisher you have got all the copyright permissions and produce all the permissions to the publisher as part of your final manuscript. One other thing is also you should know when to stop collecting material, because this can go on and on endlessly. So at some stage you just say, okay, I am now done. So let me start going to the next stage. And next slide, please. So what you do is to write a chapter plan, or what is also called a TOC, or table of contents. The first step is to divide your book into distinct parts. You can divide your book into distinct parts in several ways. This can be, for example, an early introductory part, or something in the middle, which could be possibly some kind of detail, and towards the end, which might be possibly even more advanced stuff. This is one way of doing. The other could be topics wise. So you can organize according to, let's say, 5 sets of topics or 5 sub-disciplines. You can do that. So there are many, many different ways of doing this. So you will have to find out what suits you, what works for you best in this. And at this stage, also write the rough chapter titles. It's very useful to have a chapter title, because the chapter title forces you to discipline yourself on what to write. And also give some thought to the length of the book. Because if you keep on writing and then finally count the number of pages, you might find this is something like 3 times of what you wanted to write. The length should not be too long, too high, because if it is too high, then it's going to be very difficult for the publisher to print, cost will go up and so on. And also maybe you won't find too many users for this. The other problem with the length is too short, in which case people will think you have not said enough, or maybe they'll think you don't know enough to say. So somewhere moderate, you have to find out, and what works best for you, you would know. There is nothing like a rule for these things at all. So I'm not able to give you any of this. So my book, for example, the current edition, 6th edition, is probably around 600 pages or so. It went up, and then I brought down the number of pages a little, because I thought some of the stuff can be dropped. Next is if you can put some stuff to the appendixes, please do, because appendixes are the place where a lot of details belong. For example, some explanation or derivation of some formulas or some massive data tables and so on, you can push them to the appendixes. The rule here is if you have appendixes, then that text should read as one continuing story without the appendixes. You should not tell people, read the appendix, come back, read the appendix, come back. If you do that, then you might as well put it in the text itself. So appendix should be a kind of refer to if required, but without that, you should be able to carry on with the chapter. So here, avoid too many or too few chapters, as also too many or too few appendixes. So use your discretion. Next slide, please. So now you come to the hard part of it, which is writing the chapters. So I call these draft chapters because these are not final as yet. So first is you have to now, so you have the draft titles now, tentative titles. So you have to give the final titles now, as also put the topics now. So this becomes a kind of a firm chapter plan for you. So you know exactly what goes into the chapter. Then develop a chapter organization template. Now this is immensely useful because if you don't have a template for a chapter, you end up writing all sorts of things in a chapter. Subsequently, when you put all the chapters together, you'll find different chapters read very differently. So, for example, there could be, let's say, a chapter vignette, which is like an anecdote or a story at the beginning. There could be a photograph. There could be a cartoon. There could be a short introduction. There could be an overview of the chapters. There could be key learning outcomes from this chapter. It could be just anything. Then next could be some detail, and then further detail, and so on. Then solved examples, then and so on. So, and then you conclude with the chapter with some kind of a summation. Okay. And then comes the assignment material at the end. If you do it this way, and then you stick to this plan, your chapters will be broadly uniform. Otherwise, your chapters will all look so different that you will have to do a lot of work at the end, and then that's going to be a huge waste of time. Then next is writing the chapter text. This is where you actually really put pen to paper. So it's a lot of work here. And writing the first sentence, I can tell you, is the most difficult part of any writing. First, the writing style. Now, the writing style should be appropriate for the subject for which you are writing the textbook, appropriate for the audience. I should also be time appropriate. If you write something which was possibly the contemporary style in the 1980s or 1990s, people will think you are some Rip Van Uncle or some, Methuselah or some ancient person. So you have to write in a manner that is contemporary. I'm not suggesting you write in some WhatsApp language or SMS language. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm only saying write in a manner that people in the current, let's say, world can understand. Then organization of paragraphs, how long the paragraph should be. Don't make paragraphs too long, and don't have too much unequal paragraph lengths. Something like, let us say, one paragraph is 1 page, another is 15 lines, and so on. This is going to be difficult. Then charts, diagrams, tables, and positioning them at the appropriate places. Then footnotes or endnotes, as the case may be. What I said about appendixes also applies to footnotes or endnotes. Footnotes or endnotes are for mostly for reference purposes, just to give a reference to a journal article or whatever. These might also be kind of minor explanations in maybe 25 words or less. So the footnotes should be, or endnotes should be such that without reading them, the reader should be able to get the story you are telling. So that's most important here. And then start working on the assignment material and develop the material. Have different kinds of problems. There will be text questions. There will be simple problems. There will be moderate problems. There will be advanced problems. And organize them in a suitable manner so that instructors can assign these to the students. For example, chapter 11.1 or something. That's a problem number, let's say. Now, the problem number 11.1 should be an introductory kind of problem, which they can do with reading the book. And 11.15 should be a more complicated problem for which they need to read the text many, many times. And possibly they need to do some extra work as well. Here again, more important than the earlier one, keep several backups. I'll tell you my own story. So the story of mine is not an entirely inspiring story. What happened was, one day my computer, I'm talking about maybe some 1991 or 92, around that, 92 I think. So my computer one day did not work, it just was hanging. So I called someone to the computer center to help me out. Now the person came and said, sir, I need to load the operating system again. So he did something, he put some files, I don't know what those files were, some ch star files he uploaded. And then he said, now everything is fine. So the computer was fine after that. After he left, I opened my folder and none of my files were there because the ch was actually the chapter files for me. So when you put ch star, all my chapter files got deleted. And then these operating system files came in, and then I called one of my students who was a computer science person. She came in and she said, I can recover this, but it won't come in the form in which you want it. Then I called the computer science manager. He came and recovered. It was a mix of all the chapters which I got finally, and I just dumped the whole thing. So I had to redo the whole thing. So I don't want you to have these kinds of bad experience. So I'm telling you what not to learn from my experience. So look for a smooth flow of chapter from one to the next. This is immensely important because people want to have continuity. Remember, you are telling the story in a text form. As far as the student is concerned, you are standing in front of him or her and then teaching. So that is the image the student wants to have of you as their teacher. Therefore, the idea of a smooth flow is extremely important. Next slide, please. Proofreading and class testing. Now, this is not a very pleasant thing to do because you don't really want to say something is wrong with your own writing, but then you have to do it. You have to, stand apart and say, okay, I'm now looking at my own creation, and then I'm saying there is something good about it, something bad about it. One thing which I was told by one of the editors, PHI editors, was that proofreading is different from reading. So reading, you just read, go on. In proofreading, you look actively for errors. You won't even know the kind of errors you make. Therefore, I would suggest you look actively for errors. And then over time, you'll figure out what kind of errors you are used to making. Consider these days, you can use a writing assistant software, which can even detect these errors for you and even improve your grammar and style and so on. It can actually learn from you. There's a lot of artificial intelligence-based software available. So I would recommend to you to use those, although I don't. But I'm a control freak, so I actually don't let anyone do my work. That's a problem here. Then class test the draft if possible. That means your students will go through and critique the draft. Ask your peers, anyone who you think can help you in this. More importantly, ensure confidentiality of the draft material, because at this stage, nothing has been copyrighted. So if it goes out, then the whole thing is gone. So time spent on proofreading and class testing is not a waste. It's not a pleasant time, but do spend time on this. Next slide, please. Instructor resources and student resources are extremely important supplements for the publisher to be able to sell your book. So you have to provide a detailed manual to the instructor, as also curriculum, course outlines, organization of the chapter, topics in various course outlines, teaching notes, a test bank to make their life easy, model exams if possible. Students want answers to assignment material, so the extent to which you can provide, please provide. You can also provide them with a study guide. This is fairly common in business subjects, where they can buy this separately and then use this to solve all the problems on their own. Then practice tests and model exams, problem solving templates, all these can be online these days. High quality instructor resources and student resources improve the chances of the book sales, because instructors want something that is highly usable. Students also want a highly student friendly text. And I think this is going to be my last slide. Next one, please. Editing and production. This is actually largely the publisher's job, but then the editor will keep coming to you. I just have a couple of things to say. I hope I'll exceed my time by 1 minute. Responding to the editor's queries, please treat the editor with a lot of respect, because the editor is trying to improve your book. So do understand and respect the editor's point of view. Have an open mind. Don't think I am the great subject expert. Editor knows nothing. If you take the client, then your book can't improve at all. So I would strongly urge you to listen to the editor's queries or criticism. Don't take them personally. Good editing adds a lot of value to the book. In fact, I'm going to end with something about the editor. So dealing with the editor's proof matter, the proof comes to you, and you have to check it carefully and then indicate corrections clearly and return the proof as quickly to the editor, because the editor doesn't want to be holding on to the proof for a long time. And at this stage, don't introduce any major changes, because the book has reached a certain stage. Now you start redoing, and then the editor's life becomes extremely miserable. Don't say this will go to chapter 5, this will go to chapter 18, and so on. I just want to conclude with this because I also have Shivani Garg, my editor here, and the amount of time she spends going through my manuscript, I just can't believe. So the editor is actually an invisible author of the book, co-author of the book. Just that the editor's name does not appear as co-author, because the editor does everything to make the book better, just doesn't put her name there. essential part, but invisible but essential part of the book. So do pay attention to the editor suggestions and so on. So if you do all these things, I think you will probably come with a decent book in the first edition. One last thing I will say, don't expect your first edition to be your perfect creation. That has never happened to anyone. So as my first editor, Mr. Devasya told me, the book has a second edition, has a third edition. So don't go on holding on to the first edition forever. So do give me the manuscript, let me print it, and then we can fix the problems as we go. So try to improve as you proceed. And last slide is, I think, Q&A. If I remember, can you go to the last slide? So this I will take after the next presentation gets over. Thank you very much for listening to me, and thanks to all the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Professor Narayanaswamy, for your excellent overview presentation, giving guidelines in authoring a textbook. Now we would like to have the second session featuring about authoring a book in computer science and engineering by Professor V. Raja Rahman. Professor, can you join, Professor? And Akila, can you present the Professor VR's slide?
Yeah, my PPT space, yeah. At the outset, I'd like to thank Mr. Mohan, ACM IEEE, ACM Chairman, Madras Chapter, Dr. Shaktivel of IEEE, and Dr. Vijay of CSI for organizing this meeting and requesting me to talk. You have heard Dr. Narayanaswamy has given a lot of tips in detail about how to write a book. I'll take a slightly different approach and give a bird's eye view of a person who started writing in 1967. 67 was my first attempt at writing a book, and got published in 69. And the last book I wrote was in August 2020. So I've been kind of, it's become a habit over the years, okay? And so I will not get into details like Dr. Narayanaswamy did, but give you some idea based on my experience. Next, please. I'll ask the questions, why should one write a textbook? And how to choose a topic to write a textbook. Steps in writing a textbook. That has been covered in fair detail by Dr. Narayanaswamy, so I will not do a lot of repetition. Tips from my experience in writing textbooks, and what is special about authoring books in computer science and engineering, and I'll conclude the talk after that. Next, please. Why should you write a textbook? I mean, there is no suitable textbook, in your opinion, to teach the subject. In fact, the very first book I wrote was Principles of Computer Programming, and at that time, there was no book at all on that subject in India. The books available were one or two books, which are books written in the US, and they were not suitable for what I am supposed to teach. So that's what got me into writing. And of course, we started a new course on computing, and that required a book. And so I started writing. You think you have a unique way of presenting the subject. So there are many textbooks in that area, but you feel that they are not appropriate or not, the way they present is not good. And so you start writing something of your own. Writing helps you understand the subject. You learn while you write. In fact, when I was doing research with students used to bring me programs written in C language. And at that time, I didn't know how to write C programs. So I said, well, the best way to learn C programming is to write a book and write my own programs. So that led me to write a book on C. And in fact, Similarly, a book on Pascal was also written because there is no book, and also students are writing programs in Pascal, which I didn't know. So I learned how to write programs in these new languages as they came by writing a book. While writing a book, I had to write programs and debug them, and that is very important. Writing makes you a better teacher. And if you write, you think clearly. And that thought process, it gets out in the class, and you become a better teacher if you write a book on that subject. You get to be known by students and readers as an author of a good book. In fact, very often I'm collared and asked, "Are you the author of so-and-so book?" And well, it's kind of an ego boost. Okay, you can be creative with your examples, which you give, the metaphors you use, and the exercises you design. So book writing can be as creative as doing research. So research papers are important for an academic, but writing a book is also important because you have your own unique way, and you discover a lot of new examples and metaphors, and you become creative in that sense. Monetary benefits, they're not really commensurate with the effort you put in. If you write a good textbook, it sells all right, but then the amount of effort you put in is enormous. If you want to make money, really, you have to write fiction, like Chetan Bhagat, or you have to write bizarre notes, or how to pass an exam, and so on. That kind of book will sell a lot. But a good textbook, if you think you're going to become rich by writing textbooks, forget it. That should not be the motivation at all. Next. How to choose a topic. Subject you teach is the best. When you teach a subject and you really start thinking about how to teach it, and if you are fortunate enough to teach in an IIT or IISc and so on, the teacher has the full freedom to make up the curriculum. And so you make up your curriculum and write the subject on that curriculum. In computer science, it turned out that not many colleges are there in the early days, and what the curriculum which I designed and for which I wrote a book became kind of standard. So that is somewhat different from writing a book in an established subject like physics or chemistry or maths. Subject you're researching in particularly postgraduate books. So I was doing a lot of research in parallel computing and supercomputing. So I had a lot of material and students' thesis. So I decided to write a book on parallel computing. And that was an interesting exercise because a fair amount of my research work also got reflected in the book. And a subject you want to learn, like I said, C programming, which I wanted to learn. Subject in which existing books are not good, in your opinion. That is explained by Dr. Narayanaswamy. Subjects where there are very few books or no books. In fact, the book on analog computing, which I wrote in the early 70s, there's no book at all in analog computing. Even foreign books are not there. So I wrote a book appropriate for our students, and it's of course analog computers are no more there, but at that time it was a popular textbook. Books available in the area are not affordable. So there are many books which are books written in US and UK and so on, and they're too expensive. Students can't afford to buy them. So in fact, the early books which I wrote were primarily motivated by the fact that the books which students could get, which are imported books, were just not affordable. Books available in the area are too long or verbose. For example, we take a subject like computer architecture, standard book the US universities adopt is by NSC and Peterson. It's a very good book, but it is 900 pages. It just puts you off. As soon as you pick up the book, there are a lot of unnecessary verbose examples and so on. Not only examples, but a lot of verbose discussions which are quite irrelevant from the point of view of teaching a subject in a semester or so. So many of the books, particularly American books, are verbose, and British books are more concise, but they are sometimes too concise. So you have to find a via media and decide to write what is necessary and sufficient to explain subject. Next, please. What are the steps in writing a textbook? Draft a syllabus of the course for which you plan to write a book. As I said, in computing, being an early pioneer in the country, I had the freedom to draft syllabus. Whereas nowadays, you probably have to look at the syllabi of the universities which teach that subject and probably make a syllabus which it cannot be a union of all those things, but try to make it as relevant as possible for today's syllabus. Brainstorm regarding the book with receptive colleagues. I found it extremely important and useful to talk about the subject with my colleagues, and in some cases I had a long conversation with groups of people about what that subject ought to be. Like before writing a book on the introduction to information technology, I really wanted to ask the question, what is information technology? And that was, I brainstormed with about 6 or 7 people and got different points of view. And based on that, I wrote my own idea and wrote a book, which is, in my view, one of the unique books in that area. Examine existing books, list shortcomings of existing books. This has been explained by Dr. Narayanaswamy. Plan a course, a sequence of lectures. While teaching a course, write class notes and distribute to students. Nowadays, of course, people use PPTs. Along with PPTs, you write notes and you distribute the notes. In fact, all my early books, I used to distribute notes to the class, and was very, very useful because you get a lot of feedback from students on your notes. And the feedback from students on what they don't understand, what they think is too verbose and so on, is very useful. And in fact, many of my early books were expanded based on class notes I distributed to the class. And review the class notes, exercises you gave to the class, and examples used in the class. And all these will make up a good material for you to write the book. Create a table of contents, there's no real subject, divide each chapter into sections, expand class notes to sections and chapters. Next, please. Plan not to exceed 300 pages. I mean, my algorithm has been between 300 and 400 pages. Or in some cases, if it's a monograph, it could be about 150 to 200 pages. So the book becomes 700, 800 pages. As I said, it puts off students. And not only that, the cost goes up very steeply. In India, the cost of the book is directly proportional to the cost of paper. And the paper cost goes up, in fact, year after year. And whenever I complain to Mr. Ghosh, my publisher, that he has overpriced the book, he says, what do I do, Dr. Raja Rahman? The paper cost has gone up so much. And so it's always good to have a concise book within about 300 pages so that it becomes affordable, and you also don't put unnecessary detail in the book. Before writing a chapter, write out the learning goals, that is, of the learning outcomes for the student. At the end of the reading the chapter, the student should be able to do some tasks. For example, explain something, classify something, design something, and so on. And another principle I use is what I call Pgp principle. You start with a particular example when you write about some, you take a topic, and in that topic, you start with a particular example on that topic. Then you generalize based on the example, and after generalizing, writing a theory, you come back and revisit and write another particular example based on all the generalization and what you have talked about it, and be concise. Okay. So I found Pgp principle to be very, very useful. In fact, if you look at my books, you'll find that I always start with an example, and then I generalize it, and then end up with another example. Next, please. Use plenty of worked examples relevant to students in India. Many of the examples in foreign books are irrelevant from our students' point of view. So you should pick relevant examples which make sense to our students. At the end of the chapter, write a summary, point by point, create exercises, descriptive, numerical, multiple choice, create a glossary of terms appropriate, expansion of abbreviations. There are many. References, bibliography, suggested reading as appropriate. Create an index, and index creation is quite, used to be extremely difficult. Now, of course, we have computer aids for that. Finally, write a preface on why you wrote the book and to whom it is intended, and of course, thank people who helped you and so on. Create support material for teachers, like PPTs and web material nowadays. And caution before you start, non-creative part of your effort, like drawing figures, proofreading, indexing, and getting copyright clearances and so on. The clerical part of what you do is boring but important and takes a lot of time. The creative part is the part where you enjoy writing the book. And the clerical part is the one where you get bored. But you have to do it. And without doing it, the book is not complete. Next, please. From my experience, unless you have a passion to teach and explain difficult concepts in simple English, don't attempt to write a textbook. Unless you have a passion, you don't start writing. Writing is hard work. It's essential to rewrite, revise many times what you have written the first time. What you wrote the first time is a very, very rough draft. And to polish it, you have to write and rewrite and rewrite and correct and so on. And at that stage, you also get critical feedback from your colleagues. And that's very, very important. In fact, my early books, I was very fortunate in colleagues like Professor Mahabala, Professor Sastrabudhe and others who are very, very good critics without being offensive. And that is an important characteristic of being a critic. A critic should criticize and say where you have written nonsense, and then tell you to where you have gone wrong. And that kind of a criticism is extremely important for you to rewrite and refine the book. And one should not take it personally when somebody criticizes, because that it criticizes with a good intention of improving your book. Regularity in writing is essential. Unless you write every day for 2 or 3 hours, you lose the thought process. Continuity is lost. So continuity will be there unless until you write every day. This flow will not be smooth. As I said, a lot of clerical work. At the end of the writing a book, you see the book in print. That's the fulfillment. Okay, that is not that gives you some kind of feeling that you ended up with something which is solid. Okay, effort of your results of your effort. Next, please. Computer science and engineering. What are the challenges? Our subject changes very fast. If you write a book in mathematics or physics, the subject does not change rapidly. In our area, what was relevant 3 years ago becomes irrelevant today. In fact, many of my books written in the 70s have become completely irrelevant, like book on Pascal or a book on COBOL. Interestingly, only the Fortran book is still relevant and it's still being sold after 54 prints. And so it's because engineers and scientists still use Fortran, and the early Fortran is quite different from the current Fortran. So the latest Fortran 1995 is there also I had revised, start about 4 times, 4 different titles, starting with Fortran 2 to Fortran 4 to Fortran 77 and to Fortran 1995. So in other words, subjects become irrelevant in computer science. And you have to revise the book regularly. Once in 2 years or 3 years, you have to revise the book. And you have to pick fundamental concepts which hopefully do not become obsolete. As I said, need to bring revised books again and again. Use simple English, avoid jargon and unnecessary abbreviations. Unfortunately, computer science is full of jargon and abbreviations, and one has to avoid them as much as possible. We have to, most programs, books will have programs, and you got to debug those programs and reproduce them as they are. And you have to tell your publisher not to touch your program. Sometimes the publisher tries to beautify the program, and in the process puts a comma or a full stop, and that changes the meaning of the program completely. Selecting screenshots and good reproduction is very, very important. Next, please. Conclusions. Writing is hard work. You need a passion to write. And in fact, one of my colleagues earlier said that you can write a book sitting next to a swimming pool. I challenged him, why don't we write a book together? And we wrote a book together, and after that he didn't write a book at all. That's the last book he ever wrote, and he wouldn't even revise and bring a second edition. Writing makes you a better teacher, and best way to start is to write your lecture notes and develop exercises. Use your own unique approach to present a subject. Don't borrow other people's ideas. And support from the family is essential. Unless you have an understanding family, you just cannot write, because writing takes time. It takes time out of your time at home. And I was very fortunate in having Dharma as my wife. She, right from early days, she started proofreading my books and encouraging me and not complaining that I was always writing books. In fact, later on, she joined me and we wrote a book together for schools. So it's very important to have a supporting family and find a good publisher. And I have PJ Learning as my publisher, and it's what I call a stable marriage. And in the sense that PHI, at that time, Friends Hall of India, published my first book in '69 and my latest book in August 2020. So all the books I have written, except for a couple of monographs, which I gave to different other publishers for various reasons, were published by Friends Hall. And in fact, the stable marriage started with my first book. When I wrote a book on programming, no publisher in India was interested. And they said that there is no market for programming books in India. And they wanted me to publish it, and in the sense that print it and give the printed book. And then they will publish. Mr. Gosling, who was at that time the managing director of Prince Hall, took the book and said, well, I'll gamble on it. And he found that within the first 6 months, the first print was sold out. And suddenly dawned on people that programming is not that irrelevant for India. And the rest is history. After that, I wrote a second book a year later, and so on. So it's always to have good to have a good publisher. And as Dr. Narayan pointed out, editing by publishers is very useful. Of course, in my early days of writing, there is no editing at all, because my first book was photocopy ready. In other words, it's written, it's actually developed as a photographable book. It was just photographed and published. So, because British Hall at that time was not really publishing any books, so they just said, give the book camera ready, and I gave it camera ready book. So, thank you. And any questions you may have? Many of the questions you have asked, I have addressed in what I have written, but I'll be ready to answer questions you may have.
Sir, we will take the question and answer at the end, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Rajaraman, for your excellent presentation, sharing your experiences in publishing computer science book. In fact, as you said that, you have set your own syllabus. So there is something really great, because at that time, the computer science course itself was not there. And some of your experiences really mind-boggling to know. Thank you very much, sir. And also you have given the guidelines, various guidelines which are very, very relevant. It supplements what Dr. Narayanaswamy has already spoken. Thank you very much, sir. Now may I request Ms. Shivani Garg to address the publisher's perspective to the audience. Basically, the editors have become, as per Dr. Narayanaswamy, co-authors of the book. And definitely, your role as the publisher is largely, it is supporting the authors, as well as also to see that the book is properly available in the market and make it relevant to both the author as well as the readers. So, Ms. Shivani, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mohan. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, just a second. Just give me some time. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. You have heard our established authors, Dr. Narayanaswamy and Dr. V. Rajaraman, who have shared their experience and expertise in writing textbooks. Let me tell you that the textbooks written by Dr. Rajaraman and Dr. Narayanaswamy are in our bestsellers category. Can you please show my slides? Yeah. Hello? Yeah, please show my slides. Just hold on. Yes, let me carry on then. Yeah, am I audible, Mr. Mohan?
Yes.
Okay. You can present, you can please show my slide. Then I'll start. you just show my slide, please. Shall I start? Okay, please, please. Take your time, please. Yes, thank you. So, I said you have heard our established authors, Dr. R. Narayanaswamy and Dr. V. Rajaraman, who have shared their experience and expertise in writing textbooks. Let me tell you that the textbooks written by Dr. Rajaraman and Dr. Narayanaswamy are in our bestsellers category. They came up with an idea for writing textbooks, and their textbook ideas took off like a rocket to create the bestsellers. These widely adopted textbooks, published by PHI Learning, are now being followed at premier institutes like IITs, IIMs, NITs, and several other business schools and technical universities as well. Because of their painstaking efforts in writing adoptable textbooks, we are able to establish those textbooks in India and abroad. I believe that the practical tips for mastering the craft of textbook writing shared by both of them will immensely help you find your way in the world of publishing as a published author and become a successful author too. Now, when a manuscript is prepared, the next task for an author is to get it published by a publisher. So, in my today's session, I will be covering pre- and post-publication steps from a publisher's perspective that will help you coordinate with publishers to get your manuscript published. Thus, the agenda for my today's session is publication workflow, editorial style guide, ebook version, marketing of textbooks, planning new editions of textbook, and how to publish with PHI. Let us begin with how publishing actually works. Next slide, please. Authors write manuscript, and the process of making that content available to the readers in textbook form is called publishing. This may be in the printed book form or a digital book, that is ebook. Writing a textbook is not an easy task. It requires a considerable amount of time and much hard work too. No doubt, the careful crafting of the manuscript itself is the key step in a textbook's formation. However, many other elements also contribute to creating the final product, that is textbook, wherein a publisher comes into the picture. Basically, you may consider a publisher as a bridge between the author and the readers of a textbook, who connects you to the readers worldwide by making author's work available to them in a published form. Publishing seems like a simple business, but an author writes a manuscript, it is printed or turned into an ebook, and a reader buys it. That apparent simplicity actually requires a lot of hard work and investment on the part of a publisher and involves several departments within the publishing house that work on a manuscript to get it ready for release in the market. Whether you are looking to release a print book or an ebook, it is important to know the publication process for getting a textbook published. The first step to proceed for publishing a manuscript through a publisher is approaching a publisher. When you are approaching a publisher, make sure your project fits with the disciplines and markets in which that publisher operates. Analyze publisher website to see if they seem appropriate. Are there related books on one of their list? Is there any series appropriate to your book? Once you gather all this information, you can approach a publisher in a number of ways, like meeting a representative of the publisher during his visit to your campuses, responding to their emails regarding new book announcements, book launch events invitation, and so on, which is generally sent by almost all the publishers. You can give a brief outline of your work proposal and submit it to the publisher through an online submission form, which is usually available on publisher's website. Another option is to contact the commissioning editor or the editorial department by letter, phone, or email. Let us now have a quick look at the basic steps of the publishing process. Next slide, please. Publication of textbook is actually a 5-step process. It comprises work proposal submission stage, editorial stage, then production stage, printing stage, and marketing, sales, and distribution of the final product, that is, ebooks or print books. Next slide, please. Now, submission requirements along with the guidelines are usually be found on a publisher's website. The proposal that you are submitting to a publisher should show the significance of the project and where it sits within the publisher's list. You must also describe the manuscript's current state of completion, the amount of time it will take to finish, and the manuscript length, which must comply with the publisher's criteria. Alongside the book proposal, also provide a brief CV, sample chapters, a table of contents, and a proposal form for the editorial review. When the review of sample material is complete, your editorial contact will send you textbook manuscript preparation guidelines for preparing your manuscript for publication and will also ask you to submit the complete manuscript for review. It is always advisable that authors should submit a manuscript to the publisher in MS Word. Even the technical manuscripts with numerous equations should also be typed in MS Word using built-in equation editor. Now, when the manuscript is ready with you and the final manuscript is delivered to the publisher, again, an editorial review for structure, language, factual accuracy, plagiarism checking is done. After conducting a thorough editorial evaluation, a decision regarding the acceptance of the manuscript is taken and a contract is signed. I would like to mention here that the plagiarism in a manuscript will certainly affect the decision of manuscript acceptance. Before submitting the manuscript to a publisher, it is very crucial that one should take the necessary precautions to avoid plagiarizing. It is very important that plagiarism should be avoided at all costs. The major steps to ensure your textbook is free from plagiarism are: keep track of the sources you consult while writing, paraphrase the text taken from a source, use a plagiarism checker before you submit the manuscript. I believe by taking all these necessary measures to gain a clear understanding of plagiarism, keep track of printed and electronic sources, and keep the sources you use in proper context, you can minimize the chances of plagiarizing when writing a book. If you want to quote or otherwise use any material which is someone else's copyright, even if it is a short extract, it is necessary to get permission to do so and possibly pay a fee. There are some circumstances in which you may use small amounts of text under a rule called fair dealing, but I personally feel that it is always better to seek a publisher's advice. A publisher will guide you better on this matter. Next slide, please. Once the contract is signed, a manuscript will begin its journey through the editing process. A copy editor will be assigned for the editing of the script, who ensures that the script is free of grammar, punctuation, and spelling errors. The script is also checked for factual accuracy, flow, wording, and a consistent style and formatting. To ensure consistency throughout the manuscript, a copy editor follows a style guide while copy editing. I will cover the types of style guide in my later part of the presentation. So, simultaneously, during the editing of the script, the production department applies for ISBN, that is International Standard Book Number for a textbook. It is actually a 13-digit unique international publisher's identifier number, which is known throughout the world as a short and clear machine-readable identification number. Basically, you can say it is a product number. An ISBN is used by publishers, booksellers, and libraries for ordering, listing, and stock control purposes. Now, when the editing work for a manuscript is over, the edited script is then handed over to the production department for typesetting, proofreading, cover design, and printing. The production department sends the print-ready files to a printer, and they also make sure that the textbook looks great when it is printed. Simultaneously, a digital file is shared with the IT department for publishing a textbook in ebook format, which I will cover later. Now, a textbook is brought to the world in print and ebook format. The final stage of the publishing process is marketing, sales, and distribution. Even the best written books need marketing and publicity to make sure they end up in front of the readers interested in them. To reach the greatest number and widest range of readers, publishers apply a compelling marketing mix and promotion for the textbook to ensure sales. Publishers also encourage authors to spread the word about their book. In today's world, marketing can include many methods that I will cover in detail in my later part of the presentation. Now, I will take up style guides that publishers are using. Next slide, please. Simply put, an editorial style guide is a set of rules for writing, editing, and designing content. Every publisher uses style guides, and many of them have their own corporate style guide too. It has all the guidelines for the content a publisher produces to establish consistency in voice, tone, and style of the content for print publications, website, social media, and more across all mediums and channels. A study guide contains guidelines about everything from terminology, formatting, and abbreviations to capitalizations and industry-specific words and phrases. It ensures that editors and writers create consistent and professional content. Several style guides are common nowadays, some for general and specialized use, for legal document also, for academic papers, for journalism, for electronic publishing, for business, even for the computer industry, both software and hardware, plus editorial style guides for preparing a manuscript for publication. For academic writing, 4 popular style guides are there. These are the Associated Press Style Guide, AP Style, which is now in its 55th edition, MLA Handbook for Writers of Research Papers, also called MLA Style Manual for subjects in the arts, humanities, and it is published by the Modern Language Association of America. Then American Psychological Association Style Guide, APA Style for the Behavioral and Social Sciences. It is published by the American Psychological Association, and the Chicago Manual of Style, the most popular one. In addition to these 4 popular style guides, there are several other style guides too, such as a manual for writers of term, paper, thesis, and dissertations, which actually closely follows the Chicago Manual of Style, although there are some differences between the two. Then ACS Style Guide, which is used for scientific papers published in journals of the American Chemical Society. Then American Medical Association Manual of Style for medical papers published in journals of American Medical Association. Then American Sociological Association Style Guide, again for the social sciences, published by the American Sociological Association. IEEE Style Guide, Scientific Style and Format. There are many such style guides. The Style Manual for Political Science, which is used by many American political science journalists, published by the American Political Science Association, and Microsoft Writing Style Guide. This is basically used for the technical documentation. Out of all these style guides that I have mentioned, the Chicago Manual of Style is the oldest one and was published in 1903. It is the most popular style guide which is still being used today by authors, editors, proofreaders, copywriters, and publishers to produce content, whether print or digital. To maintain a consistent style across multiple publications and define the look, feel, and tone of the content, publishers also follow their house style guides along with the Chicago Manual of Style. Therefore, while preparing a manuscript, it is important to follow the Chicago Manual of Style to ensure that style and formatting is consistent throughout the manuscript. Now we move on to the ebook version, which has become the new norm for publishers today. Next slide, please. Though ebooks have been around for over a decade, it has only been a few years since it has picked up the pace and is being integrated into the modern education system, especially during this pandemic, when institutes have shifted to online teaching and the students are unable to access their institute library. Several educational institutes have adopted ebooks or digital textbook as part of their courseware due to their flexibility and interactivity. And the students are also no stranger to digital textbooks and their multiple advantages. To have a better understanding, let us look at what it takes to produce and distribute electronically worldwide. As we all know, an ebook is evolved from a digitized version of printed books with static pages to more interactive formats that include visual representation, audio files, links, and more, and is presented in such a format that it can be read on any digital device like computers, smartphones, tablets, and a device called an e-reader or electronic reader. E-reader is specifically for reading and storing ebooks. Some of the most popular e-reader devices include Amazon's Kindle, Barnes and Noble's Nook, Rakuten's Kobo. If you were to search for ebook formats, you would come across quite a few options, dozens actually. To keep it simple, I'm listing here 3 file formats known for their ease of use, and the devices and ebook distribution platforms also require them. These 3 are EPUB, PDF, then AZW3, which was earlier called Mobi. It is used by Amazon. An EPUB or electronic publication is the most widely supported format and can be read on various devices, including computers, smartphones, tablets, and most of the e-readers. Next slide, please. To download and view electronic books on your desktop or laptop, as well as on your smartphone, an e-reader application is required. Without an e-reader app, one cannot read any ebook. Therefore, it is essential to install it on your device. Though there are plenty of such e-reader apps, the most popular ones are Adobe Digital Editions, Kindle, Google Play Books, Nook, Kobo, and Calibre. All these apps are available for free and let readers highlight sections, pages, and words in ebooks, make notes on the pages of an ebook, and store ebooks within the application. Next slide, please. In order to make ebooks accessible and interactive, a publishing platform is very much required. There is no dearth of ebook publishing platforms today. The challenge lies in selecting one that gives the best output. Some must-have features of an ebook publishing platforms are compatibility with multiple devices, operating systems, and browsers, easy to operate interface, then DRM protection as well. The 4 primary platforms that are being used widely to publish an ebook are Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple iBooks, and of course, publisher's own website. It is not enough to have high-quality ebooks. Publishers need effective ebook distribution services also that will help to reach the audience. An ebook won't be available to buy until it is made live on ebook distribution platforms. This includes direct distribution channels such as Amazon, Google Play Books, Apple iBook Store, as well as third-party ebook aggregators such as Smashwords and BookBaby. There are several ebook distribution platforms too. However, I am giving those only which are popular and are being used by several publishers. The popular ones are, as I have given in my slide, Amazon Kindle, Google Books, Apple iBooks, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and publishers' website also. Now let us discuss the essential part of publishing ebooks or print books, that is, marketing of textbooks. Marketing is important because it is about reaching readers who are interested in purchasing textbooks. Next slide, please. Textbook marketing is nothing but creating awareness for the textbooks among booksellers and consumers with a goal to generate textbook sales. Every publisher does it to ensure that their textbooks reach their target readership. Actually, marketing of the textbook starts at the same time when authors formulate ideas for the book's content, because while writing a script, the author also considers the book's audience and also thinks about how the audience will know about the book written by him or her. In the marketing of textbooks, authors play an essential role, and their help is very much required to devise a promotion plan for promoting books and reaching the target readership. Therefore, Publishers encourage authors to be active in a book's promotion by leveraging their networks and personal connections as much as possible. In today's world, textbook marketing includes a vast number of methods, and this marketing activity can be broadly divided into pre-publication marketing and post-publication marketing, which varies from company to company. In pre-publication time frame, usually after the manuscript is accepted, publishers ask authors to fill a questionnaire that forms the basis of the marketing plan for the book. An author questionnaire or marketing questionnaire is a key tool in textbook marketing and publicity. Before a textbook is published, various promotional materials like catalog listing, flyers, posters, etc. are prepared, which are shared with retailers, lecturers, librarians, and so on. A textbook web page is also created where a pre-order discount offer is floated, and the textbook is also promoted across numerous social media channels under the forthcoming titles marketing campaigns. Once the book is released in the market, email campaigns and online promotion are run to announce the book's release and its availability with the bookstores and online booksellers. During online marketing, it is also ensured that for every title, sample pages should be made available not only through a publisher's site, but also through Google Books, Google Preview feature, Amazon's Look Inside feature, and Barnes & Noble's See Inside features. Acquiring book reviews is also a part of textbook marketing, where publishers look for endorsements or reviews from the teachers who are actually using the textbook for classroom teaching. Feedback from the teachers is very much required by a publisher because they are opinion makers on selecting textbooks for classroom adoption as reliable tools which provide credibility information that supports and enhances students' understanding of critical concepts and to cement student learning too. Their feedback on the textbooks, its content and format, and its appropriateness for students helps publishers like us to improve the quality of the content as per their requirement. One of the ways to market a textbook is through book fairs like Frankfurt Book Fair, New Delhi World Book Fair, which were organized virtually during this pandemic. In this way, the textbooks are featured in different regional, national, and international exhibits. The next crucial marketing tool available with the publishers is social media marketing. Today, each publisher has their social media accounts to connect with their readers. If you talk about PHI Learning, we are active on 11 social media platforms, ranging from Facebook to Twitter to WhatsApp, Tumblr, and so on. Social media is actually a platform that helps publishers to keep readers informed about the textbooks, including the new arrivals and sharing the content or text highlights on social media platforms to get connected with them. Special campaigns are run on these platforms, both on a subject discipline and product level, to have audience interaction and engagement. A publisher remains active on social media to promote authors, books, and events, and also shares news, promotion, and giveaways. Thus, we have now seen how each stage of the publication cycle constitutes a step in the ladder toward the final form of a textbook idea. The journey of a published textbook does not end here. Authors and publishers also need to work on new editions of textbooks as and when it is required. So now we move on to discuss why to plan for new editions and how. Next slide, please. We all know that professors require up-to-date textbook to teach their students. This motivates authors and publishers to bring out new editions. The new editions are required when there are new discoveries or changes in the field. Some fields like science have new information, new studies, new theories. Then removing outdated material along with fixing corrections, typos, change in the syllabus, it also plays an important role. For example, whenever there is a new discovery, it means courses should cover that, and to make room for it, another topic needs to be removed from the syllabus. Obviously, feedback from the readers is also one of the motivating factors that lead to publishing new editions. Last but not least, to keep the latest examples or the case studies in the textbook, it is required to consider bringing out a new edition of the existing textbook. Preparing a new edition will indeed take less time as compared to the first edition, but information, data, references, all these need to be updated. Once an author decides to work on the new edition, it is advisable to discuss it with the editorial contact to have a clear idea about the publisher's plan and schedule for the revision. It is also important that authors should know how their book differs from the other books on the same subject published by the same publisher. You may ask your editorial contact for a workable file, whether hard copy or soft copy, of the publisher's copy-edited version of the previous edition. Usually it is called a master file. To get your new edition adopted at more places, do solicit reviews of your previous edition and feedback on possible changes for the new edition from instructors as well as students. In addition to this, gathering the information about the adoptions of first edition and the change in syllabi is also required. I'm moving now to my last part of the presentation. Here, I will cover how to publish with PHI and why. Let me answer first that why to choose PHI Learning for getting your manuscripts published. Next slide, please. PHI Learning Private Limited, under the leadership of Mr. Ashok K. Ghosh, Chairman and Managing Director, is well established today as a leading academic publisher brand in India and abroad. We specialize in publishing high-quality, affordable higher education textbooks as required by higher learning institutions for students worldwide, with the motto, helping teachers to teach and students to learn. PHI Learning provides tools for teachers and students to make teaching and learning easier for them since 1963. We have played a significant role in the dissemination of learning through our print books and ebooks too. In our journey of 58 years, we have worked with 2,000 authors and published more than 5,000 titles written by them under the imprint Eastern Economy editions in a wide range of subjects. Many of our textbooks are authored by eminent academicians from premier educational institutions like Indian Institute of Technologies, then IIMs, NITs, and reputed universities, and many other centers of excellence as well. Several books published by us are also included in the model course curricula of AICTE, UGC, technical universities, and premier institutes too. Being a pioneer in publishing computer science, engineering, and technology books, we take pride in publishing India's first book on computer programming titled Principles of Computer Programming, written by Dr. Raja Raman. He has also mentioned about this book in his session. This book fulfilled the need to learn about computers and programming, even though there were not many computers in India at that time. We promote homegrown publications worldwide and also have publishing partnerships with the world-acclaimed university presses like MIT, Microsoft Press, and other international publishers too. Next slide, please. Publishing with PHI is very simple. Just log on to our website, www.phindia.com, then click Publish with Us to submit your details for writing a textbook for us. The editorial team will guide your project from manuscript submission to publication. Once your draft manuscript is complete, we will also guide your project through formatting, typesetting to turn your words into a textbook, which is then available in two forms, ebook and print book. Our ebooks are available in various formats like Adobe Digital Kindle, Adobe Digital Editions, Amazon Kindle Editions, then Google Books, Barnes and Noble. So these are the platforms. Next slide, please. Upon publication, a textbook automatically gets a promotional homepage on our website, www.phindia.com, which contains sharing buttons, as I have shown in my slide, that allow you to easily share your textbook details with your peers and the broader community via Facebook, Twitter, email, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and many other social media platforms. Next slide, please. We ensure that a textbook written by our authors reaches the greatest number and widest range of readers possible. And the readers, in turn, will have the freedom to choose whichever medium they would like to read the textbooks of their choice. In order to do so, print books, along with the files for each ebook version, are disseminated to our distribution partners, that too, as per the digital format they have specified to us. Our textbooks, ebooks, as well as print books are available for purchase through PHI website, www.phindia.com, overseas distribution partners, and leading distribution platforms like Amazon, Google Play Books, Barnes and Noble, Flipkart, and so on. Next slide, please. Our editorial team would be delighted to hear from you the details of any proposal of manuscripts that you may have in your mind in the field of engineering, management, education, law, science, pharmacy, and social sciences, which are tailor-made to serve universities' prescribed course curricula, and obviously in those topics where we do not have any textbook. You may browse through our website, www.phindia.com, to learn about the topics on which we already have textbooks. So that's all from my side. Next slide. I hope that this webinar that we have organized in association with the Computer Society of India, Chennai chapter, ACM Chennai professional chapter, and IEEE Computer Society Madras chapter for the budding authors is worth your time. We hope the experience was as enjoyable for you as it was for us hosting this event. On behalf of PHI Learning, I express my most profound sense of appreciation and would place on record my heartfelt thanks to our authors, Dr. Raja Raman and Dr. Narayanaswamy, who gave their vital time from their busy schedule to grace this webinar and sharing with us the tips and guidance for writing a textbook. I'm very much thankful to both of them for their long-term working association with PHI Learning. I consider myself fortunate to have the opportunity to work with them on the textbooks authored by them. I want to extend my sincere thanks to Mr. H.R. Mohan, Chair, ACM Chennai and Chair, Special Events, IEEE CS Madras, Dr. P. Shaktivel, Chair, IEEE CS Madras, Dr. Priya Vijay, Chair, CSI Chennai, and their teams as well. I'm grateful to all the participants for attending today's webinar. I'm sure that the participant must have benefited by attending this webinar on writing textbook. Thank you once again to all of you for joining us. Stay well and stay connected. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Mohan.
Thank you, Ms. Shivani, for your wonderful presentation on publishing life cycle. In fact, quite a few things are new to me. The amount of time and effort the publishers are taking in linking the authors and readers is something mind-boggling to know. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Now I would like to request Dr. Saktivel to moderate the Q&A session. Dr.
Yes,
Saktivel,
sir.
please.
Yes, sir. First, I would like to express my heartfelt and sincere thanks to Professor Raja Raman, Professor Narayanaswamy, and Ms. Shivani for their excellent presentation about how to publish the books, guidelines, and tips. So, now we will be moving to the question and answer session. So during the registration process, we have got more than 300 questions, and now also we have got a large number of questions and congratulatory and appreciation messages about the presentation. So due to the time constraint, we will take some of the questions. Many of the questions are answered in the chat box itself. So one common question is, can we have this talk in YouTube videos later, sir? So normally we don't upload this presentation in YouTube video. Already Mr. Mohan sir has given the reply in the chat box that those who are providing those who are registered participant and providing their feedback in the corresponding links, they will be given the videos and the presentation materials after getting the approval from the three resource persons. So now we will take the questions one by one. One of the participants has asked, can you give the names of the indexing software and the writing assistant software? Indexing software, can you give the names of the indexing software and the writing assistant software?
Yeah, actually, if you talk about the indexing software, so what I feel that, these software, though you can collect the terms, whatever you would like to, but then also some, manual input is also required, because indexing software is basically a tool which will be listing all the terms. So that is the reason, though we are using indexing software, but I would prefer that, indexing should be done manually.
Then the next question is, what publisher look for when a writer submits the book plan?
Sorry?
What publisher is looking for when a writer submits the book plan?
Book plan. Basically, like as Dr. Narayanaswamy, Dr. Raja Rahman, they have already, they have already guided us. Like whenever we are writing any manuscript, think about the market, the target audience. So that is very important. And another thing is regarding the acceptance. Like if you are writing on any topic, you need to ensure that that particular topic should be accepted by the audience. That is very much important.
Next question. What is your views on self-publishing and ebooks? Self-publishing and ebooks, what is your views?
If you talk from a publisher's point of view, like self-publishing is also okay, but if it is published through a reputed publisher, then publishers should put in all the efforts to market your textbook worldwide, because they have a wide marketing network globally as well as India, whatever the country we are. So I believe that both the options are okay, but it depends upon the author which they would like to choose.
Any views on books in regional languages?
Regional languages, the problem is technical terms are not easily available. And my experience is not very good. One of the books written by us was translated in Hindi, and it had to be bulk. And there's no market. And the market in Tamil and Kannada was better, but the market in Hindi was pretty bad. In fact, I remember PHI published it in Hindi, and Mr. Ghosh told me that they had to pulp it within a year or so. Tamil went well, fairly well. Kannada also went well. That's a book and computing.
Nowadays, a lot of publishers are publishing books through calling for chapters by various authors.
May I ask a question? I am Professor Mandal from IIT Bombay. Yeah, can I ask? May I ask a question?
What's the question?
Yeah, to Professor Narayanaswamy Ramachandran. The question is on the indexing software. I'm just looking for the experience, like while collecting material, he said that it is better to use some indexing software to organize. So I wanted to know the experience about how it can be made efficient by using indexing software and what are the software he suggests. Similarly for the writing assistant softwares.
Okay, so for writing software, I'm sure there must be something specialized in the market, but Microsoft Word itself can do a good indexing job. So you can try Microsoft Word itself, one. Second is, I think I have put it down already in the chat box. Second is the writing assistant software, you can use Grammarly. Now, I have no personal experience in any of this, as I explained just now. But Grammarly is very popular these days because it corrects spelling and grammar and writing style. I think it also possibly uses artificial intelligence, so it learns your style as well. Now, the problem for me is that I am a control freak. So I like to keep complete control of what I write. So for me, handing over control of my writing to someone else is not acceptable. So I would like to do it myself. So I type everything and I do it all myself. So I cannot say anything about how good it is, but you can certainly try a trial version of Grammarly because it has lots of examples and so on. It says it can correct. So perhaps you can try. But what I would say is just handing over this work to a software is never a good idea. The software can do a job. For example, I tried to put my points for today's presentation just as cues or let's say prompts by speaking into Word. Now the output that came on Word using the word microphone was terrible. So it was just not what I wanted it to do. So I ended up doing all the editing of that finally. So better you do this. I think you can run it through some language software later if you want. But I would think this would be required only for people who are not good at writing. See, if someone knows the stuff very well but can't write, I think they might need these aids. But if you're clear about your ideas and you can write at least, let's say, 2 or 3 good drafts, the improvements on the publisher will do. So the publisher is looking for essentially what? The publisher is not looking for a finished product. The publisher is looking for a good product. The publisher can do a lot of work, making it better and so on. If you think you need language editing and so on, the publisher will probably help you out on this. So I will completely decide whether to use software. It's your personal choice.
Thank you, sir. The next question is how to publish a book in a standard and rebooted publisher. How to publish a book in with a standard and rebooted publisher.
Shivani may say that you come to PHI.
Yes, obviously, why not? Because, I have already, in my presentation, I have already mentioned what are the actually, highlights for a reputed publisher. So definitely, as you have said, I will say that please come to us. Well, jokes apart, actually highlight reputed publisher. I will again say that, the publisher which is having a wide marketing network and they use latest publishing technologies. So I think that, one should go for that.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Next question is your kind advice for the software used for making illustrations, figures, schematics, etc.
Yeah, there are many softwares for illustrations, figures and all. Some are the paid ones, some are the free ones also. Like if you talk about the paid ones, those are like Adobe Illustrator, then Adobe Photoshop, CorelDRAW. All these softwares are used for infographics and illustrations. If you talk about some tools which are freely available, these are Inkscape, Gravit Designer, Era, Gradient. There are many softwares, but it depends how comfortable you are. So it's on you. But if you personally, I feel that Adobe Photoshop is a good software.
Thank you, madam. The next question is writing a book more of inductive approach? Writing a book more of inductive approach. Hello. Is writing a book more of inductive approach?
I think Dr. Rajaraman can better answer this question.
I don't fully understand what do you mean by inductive approach. I mean, writing a book always requires trial and error in the sense that you don't write a book just in one shot. You write a chapter, revise it, re-revise it, and so on. So it is a iterative process. Writing a book is an iterative process.
Iterative process. Thank you, sir. Next question is how to do the royalty contract?
See, as I mentioned, basically when this review stage is over, so any publisher, they will be sharing their contract, and once this contract is signed, then only the project for editing project is going to start. So if you talk about the royalty, then it is mentioned in the agreement only. If you talk about us, we give 15% royalty on net receipts. So it varies from publisher to publisher. But it is given in their, it is given in the agreement form or contract.
Thank you, madam. Next question is, can the lecture notes be presented as a book? lecture notes can be published as a book?
Normally not. I think lecture notes are the raw material based on which you will create the finished product of a book.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, we are now living in a digital age. Then why it is still fashionable for authors to insist upon publishing their books in print only? How would you encourage such authors as well as publishers to consider publish their books electronically?
Well, a printed book is a printed book, okay? And I'm more fashioned. I get magazine both in e-form and in the printed form. The Economist, for instance. Economist magazine, which I get in printed form, I find it much easier to read and go wherever I want. Whereas e-form, it is quite a effort to read. So by and large, a printed book gives you a freedom to mark pages and go wherever you want. And I think to some extent it depends on your, the new generation may be quite different from my generation.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Dr. Divakar, please, sir.
Yeah, see, my book on performance appraisal and compensation management, it is a second edition, but now since last 1.5 years, I am feeling the need to add the work from home and the e-appraisal. There is hardly any book in the market which speaks about the change management on account of this COVID-19 and what can be the effective step to change the e-appraisal and the system at large with regard to performance appraisal. I want to add 2 chapters in my book. How to go about it?
Shivani, ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Goyal.
Yeah. You see, there is a need to include enough material for this change management work from home, because you never know how long it is going to continue. Because lot many companies are now giving appointment letters to the people that their job is work from home.
Yes.
So we need to be very practical about it. The e-appraisal was already there, but there need to be a chapter to explain everything right from the beginning about the e-appraisal and what are the steps to be taken for work from home scenario.
Yes. Obviously, if we talk about this work from home culture and performance appraisal while doing, work from home. So I think when there is a change, we are in the changing scenario is changing. So accordingly, we have to bring out the books which, covers all these things. I think
I want to include 2 chapters on it.
Yeah, sure.
So how to go about it, with whom to be in touch with my sample chapters, with a manuscript of 2 chapters, 2 or 3 chapters.
Yes, it is because you have published it with us, so you can send it to the editorial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I send to you or to whom?
Yes, you can send to me as well. No issues.
Okay, so nice.
Okay, thank you.
I am very grateful that PHI is organizing such a webinar, which is really a very unique and exemplary for the other publishers in the country. And it is a role model. I must feel grateful to Pushpita and Dr. Ashok Ghosh about this pragmatic step taken.
Thank you so much.
And Shivani, you are a very great speaker. I myself give presentations and other things, but today for the first time, I have seen your exemplary, excellent performance as a speaker, as a presenter. I'm really very happy to have this long association. Long association from 2006 onwards.
Yes.
The days of Mr. Devasiya and all.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr.
And it is really a proud moment to be the author of Apprentice Hall.
Thank you. We are also happy to have you as our author.
What are the key ingredients for writing a bestseller technology-oriented book? What are the key ingredients for writing a bestseller, technology-oriented book? Hello?
Well, pick a proper topic which is current. Okay. See if there are no competing books in that area, and find out if you are good enough to write the book. Do you have enough knowledge? And based on that, you go ahead and write. I mean, about bestseller or not, it depends very much. I mean, in fact, I remember Mr. Gosling, when he met me at the beginning, and I went with my book, said that publishing is like betting on a horse. Sometimes the horse comes out way ahead, and sometimes it is behind. And as a publisher, I don't know what horse to bet on. And I'm just betting on you. I hope that you come out ahead. Okay.
Thank you, sir. The next question also to you, sir. Whether the junior faculties will also be able to publish the book?
Pardon?
Whether the junior faculties will also be able to publish the book?
When I started publishing, I was the junior most faculty in my department. So it's nothing to do with junior or senior. It depends upon whether you have passion and whether there's something to write about. Okay? And there are some good ideas. So it doesn't depend upon junior or senior.
Thank you, sir. Next question. While writing a book content, should be mapped with available books or university syllabus. While writing a book content, it should be mapped with available books or university syllabus.
Depends on that. Depends. Normally, when as I said, I try to make up my own syllabus, and if you're targeting a set of universities, it's better to look at the curricula and try to make a reasonable union, and try to include what topics are, in your view, very important, and try to cover as much as possible, but not everything. Okay, and so you have to use your judgment, and the guidance can be like a model syllabus of ICT or UGC, and use that model syllabus, and that will be reasonably all right.
Thank you, sir. Next question: how to differentiate a book from academic to reference book? That is, what is the difference between textbook and reference book?
Textbook normally caters to a particular curriculum and a subject in a course, whereas monograph is normally on a research area, which doesn't have a large market, but is a specialized area in which you have expertise. So monograph reference books will not have large sales, but it will allow you to tell the world what you know, and it can be a monograph type where you give your research results and also discuss the most recent research results in that area.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next question: is there any financial support is available for writing a book?
Depends. I mean, many of the I remember when I used to write in the early days, there was the curriculum development cells in the institutes, and the curriculum development cell used to give you a startup money, and now the Nptel will give you some money for writing. So most IITs, and I know only about IITs and IISc, we have a curriculum development cell which normally gives some startup money. for clerical work which you do. In other words, if you hire somebody to draw figures or to do typing for you and so on, there's some money they give, and it depends upon the college or the institution. I don't know the current status, whether the curriculum developments are still active, but I know that Nptel is quite active. So Nptel may encourage people to, in fact, they encourage people to give web-based lectures and web-based material for many subjects. So Nptel is primarily run by IIT Madras. So one may write to the coordinator Nptel at IIT Madras to find out about financial assistance.
IIT Madras also gives 6 months paid leave to faculty if they are writing a book. Paid leave for 6 months.
Thank you, sir. The next question: how to upgrade the textbook which will be suitable for the competitive examination?
I'm not an expert in that area. I don't work. I don't look at that at all.
The next question: when a textbook on a subject is available, authored by a standard author, authoring another textbook on the same subject, how can one do this so that textbook is interesting to read?
Well, I mean, that there's no algorithm for that. You just have to use a judgment and say, if you have anything new to say, you have to say it. And if you have a new way of presenting a subject, then it's worth it. In any case, if it's a repetition of what is there already in the market, no publisher will take the book. So you can give a gist of what you want to write and send it to publisher. And publisher would normally filter it out and say it's no good. Am I right, Shivani?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Fashionable, can we close the meeting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most of the questions are answered during the session, so we can move on to the next activities.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Priya?
Good evening, everyone. I thank our speakers, Dr. R. Narayanaswamy, Dr. V. Rajaraman, and Shivani Garg for sharing their valuable experience and suggestions and answering all questions patiently to enlighten all the novice writers from initiation of selecting a subject to finally marketing it in an excellent way. I thank our associate partners, Mr. H.R. Mohan, Chair, ACM Chennai, and Dr. P. Secretary, Chair, ICF Letter, who are also our CSI Park Chairman and Senior Fellow Members who are along way with us in fine-tuning us. And also, we thank our associate partner, PHI Learning, Mr. Ashok K. Ghosh, Swami Garg, Lalita Negi, and all members of PHI Learning in associating with us to provide this wonderful seminar. I thank Dr. Agila, our MC member, and P.V. Subramaniam, our past chair, will be helping us out in all coordination from invitation to recording in organizing the program. I thank all the present and past office bearers, MC members, and senior fellow members of CSI, IEEE, and ACM for joining and encouraging us in all our programs. Last but not the least, I thank all our overwhelming participants without whom the webinar is not a success. The response is very huge, and also Google Meet strength was approved at least 250 its maximum strength today. Regarding our upcoming programs on 21st June at 6 p.m., we have webinar on ergonomics and office yoga by Dr. Deepika Chari, and on 26th June at 6 p.m. we have webinar on data tsunami by Mr. Venkatakrishna. The link for registration as well as about our program with Big has been posted in our chat box. Once again, I thank everyone. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all for the wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Informative
Thank you so
evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all for the wonderful webinar session. Thank you all the speakers. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
speakers. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, sir. This is
Good
Lalita.
night.
Good night to everybody.
Good
Thank you
night.
very much.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, ma'am.
Good night.